This conference will now be recorded.
Well, hello everyone. Thanks for joining today. My name is Paul Georgie. I am a customer success manager here at Print Audit. Basically, what my job is all our recurring customers, recurring revenue customers, our subscription dealers. I make sure that they are using the products that we have offered under the subscription service, and they're happy and they're constantly paying us. Today, what you're going to see is our product offering. Now, I've got two products here that I'm going to show you today, as well as a couple of other things. But this is our Infinite User Management, as well as our Insight Dashboard, which is what you see popping up on screen right now. And I'll tell you about the interconnectivity of those two products and how we go about the business approach. But first, let me go through IUM and I'll show you what this is. So, Infinite User Management, this is our bread and butter. This is our I guess you could say our Equitrack, our paper cut type competitor. It is a web-based application. Now this is typically it's an on-prem. Most customers like it to be on-premise just because of the information that it picks up and all that fun stuff. My demo site is accessible outside of our network here. If you want to take a look at this, if you want to get in and surf around and see a bunch of things, I'll happy to give you a pin code access to mine. All you got to do is go to demo.printaudit.com and then flip over to pin code, and I'll get you a login so you can look at all the fun stuff that we've got. Once we log in, and I'm logging in as an administrator right now, you'll see this nice little dashboard pop up. This is a pretty slick little thing that you can actually edit. You can add in a couple widgets in there. In this case, I have total print jobs tracked, how many users I'm tracking, the types of jobs. So I've got print, copy, I got fax and scan. I also have applications. So, Notepad, photos, Google Chrome, and then top 10 devices. And down here at this one, I've got top 10 users. And as you can see, they're just all me because this is demo site. Let me go into the administration here, and I'm going to show you guys some of the features that I absolutely love about this system, and I think that this is where we're seeing a lot of traction these days. Just a little bit of background history before I go into them. This product was launched in February 2018, and across our, I guess you could say 80 or so premier dealers that I deal with, we have been able to deploy out about 225,000 licenses of this across just 80 dealers. So it's growing exponentially. First thing you'll see here is we have an email set up so you can actually send out things like alerts. You can set up reports to be generated via email, so on and so forth. We've got the ability to change logos on any of the emails, any of the reporting logos, as well as if I go in here, our desktop client, you can actually change the logo on that as well. The system itself is also rebrandable, but right now our development team has got to do a couple things because if a customer, an end user customer, ever does an update to a new version, this particular branding here does break. So we're going to fix that soon. So I'll take you in through the very first system, the system that is sort of the biggest seller, which is our secure functionality. As you can see, I go down here on the left-hand side, and I'll go into settings. So secure is exactly that. End user prints from their computer workstation. They walk up to a device. They release their print job. Very, very simple format. In this case here, I'll show you a couple of really neat features that we've got. Down here at the bottom, we have a direct integration to Google Cloud Print. Now, Google Cloud Print, for those of you in North America, is table stakes for any school district, any K-12 school district. Absolutely. In the US, every single school pretty much uses Chromebooks for their students. G Suite is sort of table stakes there. So being able to have the ability to print through Google Cloud Print is good because that means you allow all the students to be able to print from their Chromebooks and release through the MFPs, or at least even just track them, even if it comes straight out. My other favorite feature, and this is one of my personal ones because I was I was involved in the concepts of this one here, is our release codes, which is right here in the middle. Essentially, this is a neat little concept. So let's say Anna has asked me to print off a document that I'm building for her. Instead of me printing it off and walking over to her desk and dropping it off, I print it to the secure queue. I give it a, in this case, I've got it set up as a 4-digit code to do a release to. And Anna can walk up to any MFP in the environment, ID herself, type in that 4-digit code, and my print job comes out for her. Now, in here, I will. I'm going to go into the actual queues. Now, this is the queue setup for individual printers. Now, you'll see a couple of different things here. First off, we have statuses. This HP LaserJet 700 has got a status of red, and what that means is I can't reach it from the admin console. That means that nobody can print to that print queue. There's something wrong with it. It needs to be addressed. That doesn't necessarily mean the printer is down. It just means that there's something wrong with the queue itself. The other ones, of course, I've got set up as secure holds, and they are all reachable. But let me go into a queue, and I want to show you a couple things that we do with this. So I'll go into this Konica one here. And I've got it set up for a couple things here. I've got it called what's called a route to queue. This is more of a global follow me print. So if you have a customer that has more than one location, you can set up secure queues in each one of those locations, and an end user can drive from location A to location Z and release the print job, sort of thing. The other neat little feature in here, which I really like, is down here towards the bottom, which is called the network card release. So if you've got single function printers, right, they don't have a nice interface that we can't put our embedded application on. But in this case here, customers still want to do a secure release. Out there in the market, obviously the two major manufacturers, which are RF Ideas and Elitech, have what are called TCP readers. They're essentially little black boxes with readers on it. You take the Ethernet cable from the wall, you stick it into this black box, and then you take another cable from the black box, you plug it into the printer. That allows you to give the end user what I call tap and release functionality. So they can walk up to any single function printer, tap the card on the reader, and the job is going to come out to them at the printer they're standing at. On top of that, if I go down here one little further, is our embedded applications. These are the apps that reside right on the MFP. Right now I've got 3 set up. I've got an HP, a Sharp, and a Xerox. Very simple. These are applications, again, that will take over the authentication portion of the device. So no one can use the actual device until they log into our system. In this case here, I've got the system set up for a card or PIN code. So that means that they can walk up, tap their card onto the MFP, and it'll unlock for them. Or if they forget their card, they can either log in with their network credentials or log in with a PIN code. On here as well, I've allowed them to do what I call what's called card registration. So you don't necessarily need to have to worry about front-end loading those cards. In this case here, the end user can tap the card on there. If we don't recognize the card, it's going to say, okay, who are you, and require you to put in your network credentials. So you've got a lot of nice little baked-in features here, especially on that sort of table stakes secure and how you release it. Now, I've talked to you about the tap and release system. I've also told you about the embeddeds, but there's a third release option here. Now, not many people see this as a benefit, but I will tell you in some of the wider distributed areas, it is a pretty neat one. For individual users, we have this little page here called My Print Audit. And in this case here, it is just a simple web URL that you can log into. You can log in, again, any means necessary. But what it'll do is it'll give you a view of the jobs that you have in your personal queue. And from here, I can actually select the job to delete it. I can release it or release all. And I can pick the printer I can release it to. The really neat thing is we actually optimized this particular panel for mobile devices. So I'll give you a good example here in our office in Calgary. We've got, about 40, 45 printers. I can print from my workstation. I can walk up, and we have an internal Wi-Fi system here, so I can log in with my phone and release the print job to the printer I'm standing at from the comfort of my own phone instead of having to log into a panel. That pretty much covers it for the secure. Anyone got any questions on this component of it? Okay, so I'll show you a couple of other things that we do with the system itself, because it is more than just a secure or pull print system. I'm going to go into the
I do have
job
a
account.
question.
Sure.
Yeah, so you said at the beginning this was mostly an on-prem solution, correct?
That's correct.
And with what you compete against with PaperCut and EquiTrack, are those mostly on-prem as well? I just don't know this space quite as well as obviously we do our own, but is that kind of assumed across the board that everybody wants this as an on-prem solution?
You know what? Majority of the time, yes, and I will tell you why. If I go into our administration here, and I go into our user settings, let me just go into the list profile here. I've got everyone's Active Directory credentials here, as you can see. This is our office. The system can be set up to sync with Active Directory. So that means we could take in people and group them by their AD structure. A lot of customers are a little bit leery about having that stuff in a hosted situation, which can always be a problem. Now, in saying that, I do have customers that have this on AWS right now. I've actually got a fairly large Verizon reseller in the Pacific Northwest, where they have the backend system at AWS, and we're tracking just about 3,000 retail outlets.
Wow. Okay.
So there's a whole bunch of things. Not only that, but if I go into the job accounting here, and I'm just gonna hit search. Let me just do the default here. You can see I've got a ton of metrics on what end users are printing. This is about 35 to 40 different pieces of information off of every single print job. And you guys are used to the space of the ERP system or the device monitoring system. You're looking at meters. This is the meter. This is the guts behind those meter reads.
Yeah.
So that's where you're seeing a lot of this now. In this space, that analysis, depending on the customer, they don't want this type of job history, job information into a hosted system unless it is, the utmost, most stringent system out there. So it'd have to most likely be, PCI compliant and SSA 16 certified.
Yeah, no, I think that part of that was my assumption, is just some of the certifications, some of the data that would be leaving that environment. Although I'm assuming that the reseller at some point sees that data, so they can at least log in to that server and see that.
Yeah, and there's a couple of things that we do in those cases.
Yeah.
There's a couple of different ways that we can do that. First off, like I said, because this is over the internet, over web-based, it's IIS-based. It's just simply make an exception in the firewall for your URL, right? So if you're familiar with doing those types of things, yeah, this is table stakes for them. The other way is in our reporting system, which is what I'm in now. If I go into, I'm just going to hit create simple report. We got a whole bunch of different types of reports that we can show, like what are the average user volumes, what applications are they printing to, who's doing color printing versus black and white printing, all that fun stuff. These reports can also be built into what's called a composite report. So if I go into this one here, I got 3 or 4 different reports set up. And the beauty of this is on our delivery method. So I can build a report and I can deliver this in a number of different ways. So let me just go into create simple report here. I'm going to grab this executive summary. I'll hit create on this. And at this point, I have a couple of different things that I can do with this system, but if I build it, it's going to drop it right on my right on the desktop because I haven't scheduled this out. But it'll show up here in 2 seconds once it finishes. Here we go. So this is a bit of an executive summary. Now, of course, I don't have any data here to see it, but if you'll see here up at the top, I've got a couple quick systems. I can print this report, I can download it as a PDF, or I can send it out to someone by email. Any of the reports that we have, any of the reports that we're building out of the system can be sent out via email, can be dropped into a network folder within the organization, can be sent to a web upload, or you can even drop those documents, drop these types of reports into an FTP folder if you need to. So whether this system is exposed to the outside of the network or not, there's other ways, there's alternative ways to get data out of the system itself. This sort of dovetails into one of the other products, which is the second tab that you see here, which is Insight. So in this system, and one of the things that we've always taught for Premier members is what we call a user-based assessment. So, you know, especially you guys at Print Fleet, I mean, you guys have device-based assessment on lockdown. You know exactly what you need to do to get those types of conversations going. This sort of adds on to that. So instead of saying, hey, you know what your volume zone, know what your cost per page is, now you can say, well, know how many users are printing to those printers. Know what types of applications. Do you have an audit trail what you're doing? Is this something that we can help you out with things like HIPAA compliancy, so on and so forth? In doing that, what we've got here in this system is what we call merge. So we've created a file structure. It's a secure file structure called JBS, or jobs files. And what we do is we teach the dealers, sales reps, how to go in, how to talk about doing a user-based assessment, getting the software installed for, let's say, a 30-day period of time, doing this job merge export, having it sent to us, and then we load that data into our Insight application, which is what you're seeing here. So Insight will show you a snapshot of that assessment data. And I'll take you through some of the metrics now, and I'll show you what we can do with this system. So in this case here, we've been tracking this environment for 53 days. We've tracked 224 users. Over the course of those 53 days, those 224 users produced 234,000 pages of paper and produced 67,000 documents. Now, bear with me over here. Let me just get my annotation up over on this side so I'm not showing it a little bit. But you can see here, I've got things like top 10 users. I've got pages by application. I've got the top 10 most reprinted documents. I have top 10 users by color volume. I also have these ones here, which are job to job size, as well as paper to job size. Now, this is pretty neat. So you think about a meter, right? You got 10,000 pages a month, which is great. But how many of those jobs are 1 to 3 pages? How many of those jobs are 10 to 25? How many of those jobs are over 50 pages? That's where our software comes in. And that's where these two pie charts come in. So job to job size. What this one here particular is telling me is that 82% of the time an end user clicks print in this environment, it is a job between 1 and 3 pages. But if I look at the pages to job size, which is the pie chart below, you'll see that the 1 to 3 page category is only 38% of the meter. So the paper output, 82% of the time, any users clicking print is only represented by a quarter of the actual meter output. Where we come into play and where we look at things like optimization and saving an end user money is here at the large jobs. So let's take a look at the 50 plus page jobs. If I look at the job size, I can barely hover over it. There's only 300 print jobs. So out of 67,000 times, this only happened 300 times. But if I look at the paper consumption, the paper output from those 300 print jobs represents 12% of the output. I can actually drill into this and say, okay, so who printed these types of jobs and what else looks at these print jobs. In this case, I do that, and I can scroll up here and take a look. I only have 78 users that printed those 300 jobs, but look at the average job size. It's 94 pages long. And if I take a look at the applications, Accord 32, that's when an end user is in a PDF and they print it to paper. So in this case, I can see that there is a large amount of documents coming from PDFs. I look down again at some of the documents that are being produced, and you can see here this Fisher Personnel 2015 Personnel PDF. This is their onboarding handbook. And the question is, well, why do you have an onboarding handbook, right? Is this something that we can help you out with elsewhere? Are there other avenues that we can actually help you increase revenue in this customer environment instead of actually having them print something and collecting a meter click? The other thing to note about this is if you look at this pie chart on the right-hand side, I'm still in this 50-plus page category. Only 13% of it was printed in duplex. A whopping 86% or 24,000 pages of paper from large jobs were printed on one side of the page. And I will tell you, I do about 200 to 300 assessments like this a year. In this case here, this is very common. Large jobs just aren't printed on both sides of the page. And we hear it all the time, right? Dealers say, increase duplexing, increase duplexing. This is where sort of those things change. Now, what we also do in this case is we break down an average cost per page, and you can plug in those numbers, but we can show you how much it's costing. So the large jobs, this is still filtered in here, cost this environment $1,200 to print these. $15 per user to print those large documents. $12 of that 15 was from the color side. And that's just one optimization. I'm going to clear that out, and I'll show you another neat little one. So as I clear that out, and it gets a little laggy sometimes, but sorry, is there a question there?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just going to ask a quick question on this. Does it actually break out to say if that was on, is it showing us that if that was done on a duplex, this is how much it would save? Because what I saw, and maybe I misunderstood it, was this is how much all those print jobs cost. But if they actually duplex all those pages, what would it save?
Yeah, and I was just about to get there, so I'll show you what that means. But let me show you this first. Up here in the upper right-hand corner, there's this web/email printing in color, and you'll see it's showing at 20%. And what that means is if an end user is in a web browser, Google Chrome, Safari, Internet Explorer, you name it, if they're in that web browser and they're printing out, or if they're in Outlook and they're printing out an email, how much of that's coming out in color? And in this case, it's at 20%. So that means that 20% of the application, 20% of that printing full color. And I'll show you a neat little example of this. If I go take a look at Outlook and my pages by application, I can drill into it. And I could tell this customer, hey, listen, you've got a problem here. You've got 173 users that printed off 4,900 emails in just over 2 months. What were on those emails? Is this a security violation? Do you need to curtail this? Because I will tell you, Mr. Customer, that's 8,000 pages. And out of those 8,000 pages, 30% of them were in color. Oh, by the way, here's your top 10 users of printing color emails. Now, this is how we do this, right? And as you can see here, I'll just one last thing, total cost per user. It's costing this environment $1.95 per employee to print off emails. $1.49 of that is the color cost. There's an optimization right there. So I've just shown you two optimizations. So how do we do this, and how do we actually future state this? We go into the what if analysis. So here I've got the current state, which is $7,700 or $34 per user, and I got their future state. Let's talk about doing some optimization in this environment, and let's see what we can do with this. So the first one is the last one I just showed you, which was web and email printing in color. We see it at 20%. So if we can reduce that, if we can cut that in half and say, okay, only 10% of your web and email are going to come out in color, what's that going to look like going forward? We got this nice little slider here, which I can say, okay, at 50%, if we cut that in half, what does that look like? And the future state will show me I've gone from $7,700 in current. The future, I'm at 7,500. I've gone from 34 down to $33 per user. I'm saving him an overall of 3% just by looking at those applications and saying they shouldn't be printing those in color. The other one I showed you was duplexing. And this system here is actually pretty complex because it only looks at multi-page documents. But let's say if we were to take a look at and increase the duplexing by just 20%, what does that look like? Well, we're still at 3%, but now because we're printing on both sides of the paper for an increase, we're looking at saving them 6,400 pages of paper. That is, a box of paper has 5,000 sheets, so that's about a box, just over a box and a half of paper. I could take a look at this and say, okay, let's do this a little bit more. Let's do it up to 30%. Now I'm at 2 boxes of paper. I'm saving them 4%. Oh, we got this nice little environmental one here. We've saved you 1.1 trees of paper. In saying this, those are just 2 ways that we can actually optimize. Now, how do we optimize those? I'll go back to Insight, or I'll go back to IUM here, and we do this with our rules-based printing engine. So rules is behavior modification. On my desktop, I have this little client. It will pop up if I do a violation. And as you can see here, I got a couple rules set up. In this case here, if I go into my Outlook printing, because I know this is a problem, I have a set up application name contains Outlook. Total color page count is greater than 0. So even if I'm printing 1 page, I'm going to do what's called the soft rule. And this gives you a condition. It says, do you want to continue printing this, yes or no? And in this case, if I look into my message, it says, why are you printing? I've actually got this for a different rule, but you could say, should you really be printing off your emails in color? The lifespan of a printed email is about 30 seconds. Whatever you want to, you can do this. The neat thing as well is you put in an event message into that rule, and we can actually report on how successful or how challenging those rules are. Any questions on that?
So just a quick question. The software prompts a behavior, but it doesn't like mandate it, I guess. So it doesn't say that all emails or anything is printed in black and white, for instance.
So we're not going to automatically change the print job. We tried doing that ages ago, and what we found was people would ignore the pop-up saying your print job's changed, and they go back and print it, and printing actually increased. In this case here, you can do a number of different conditions, and I'll just show you here on the rules themselves. If I add in a condition here, I can base it on just about anything you can see here. In fact, there's about 88 million combinations of rules. So in this case, let's do a document title, and I'll say contains the word resume. And this is a rule, just so you guys know, this is a rule that General Dynamics came up with for their install. So condition is if the document title contains the word resume, the condition I've got, I can do a bunch of things. I can display the message and cancel the job, meaning they're not allowed to print that at all. Give them the option to conditionally cancel it so they can go through, display message and continue the job. We can deduct from balances, all that fun stuff. But in this case with General Dynamics, they actually set it up where it was an email. So the end user didn't realize that they were being tracked on this. They didn't realize that anyone was aware of this. But the system itself actually sent off an email to someone in HR saying, hey, employee 123 is sent off, has just printed off a resume. Again, a little heavy-handed, but it's what works for them. Most environments will see about a 10 to 15% reduction in spend in print behavior just by implementing 2 to 3 rules. So, you guys, and I get it. I mean, this is sort of new for you guys. You guys are on the other side, looking at tracking the devices, looking at the ERP system, so on and so forth. This sort of flies in the face of, well, hey, if I put this in, I'm reducing my revenue because I'm reducing clicks. But you got to remember, the way we offered the program was on software as a service. So as the clicks are going down, as we're forcing those clicks to go down, they're charging for this on a monthly basis to offset that cost. And because of the way we package the program, the more they deployed out of this, the more gross profit they are making. So in just a little bit about the competitive space about this system as well. So as I mentioned with PaperCut, right, and we see this a lot of times. Most of the time when I'm up against them, typically it's in a K-12 school. So we're looking at a student, faculty, and staff type of organization. They're all using G Suite. They've got Chromebooks out to the students that they want to be able to track printing from. In those typical environments, I'm seeing the average cost of that transaction about $67,000. Most of that's going to professional services to do the install, and the dealer would get a 30% cut of that, but there's nothing recurring after that, and their volumes are going to drop anyways. Where we come in and we say, look, we can offer this at a much lower cost because you can do it as software as a service. We make the recommendation to the dealer to say charge, especially for a school district, about anywhere between 25 cents to 50 cents per person per month. And then if you're going to add in the embedded application as a release station, charge about $10 to $15 per month on top of that. And that money is all theirs. They can collect that on a recurring basis and offset that reduction. It's a lot different business model. It takes them a little bit more to get their heads around because they're used to doing that transactional where they get a 30% cut of the software costs, but someone else is making that money. Where we come in, we can say, look, you can make this money, you can do this. Now, I talked a little bit about the secure print. I talked about the rules-based printing. The last functionality of this product, which is one that we actually started with, is our what we call custom fields. So, Adam, you and I talked about a law firm, for example. Law firms, architecture firms, engineering firms, they're all professional services type firms. They don't like just having a sunk cost into printing. They want to charge their client base back for that activity. Now, this type of habit's been going down lately simply because the dominant force in that space, which is CopyTrack, they will charge $10,000 to $20,000 for install for like a 10-person law firm, where we can go in and say, look, we can do the same thing for $500 to $1,000 a month, no problem. It does what we call a client field. So in this case, I've got 3 different fields set up. If I go into this top one here, which is clients, I hit values. You'll see a bunch of codes in here, right? Departments, customers, whatever happens. If I print a document, so if I just hit print on this, it's probably going to pop up on my other screen here, but I'll just quickly print it here. Let me just see where this pops up. What's going to happen is I will get a pop-up on my screen that says, okay, what client are you billing this for? Here, I'll just bring this into screen here. You can see here, this is the pop-up. I can hit a client code. I can also hit a matter code. I've got a cost associated to it. I hit OK. That job activity gets sent back to our database. It's an SQL database. And from there, we can create a flat file export that can sync up with their accounting system so they can bill back and recoup those costs for all their printing and all their copying back to those customers.
That's fantastic.
Now, bear with me here because I thought I had it up, but I've lost it. But I've got a video that I want to show you. Unfortunately, the hardest thing for us to actually show you guys is the embedded applications. So bear with me here. I've hosted it up onto a bit of a YouTube here so you can see it. But this is what the embedded application sort of looks like. This is on a Xerox Ultalink. I've got it's an Ultalink C8030. I've got it set up with a card reader system. And our application's running on the system itself. So I've got a little HID tag I put onto a business card here. I'm going to tap it on the reader. It's going to log me in, and I got a couple options here. I can do a copy, scan, fax. I can go into my view secure jobs, or I can release jobs. In this case, if I go into the view jobs, this is all the jobs that are held into my personal queue, and they are compatible. Yes, I can release them to this particular device. If I select the document, I've got the options to delete them. I've got a release all button that releases everything in my queue, or I can just release a specific job. If I go in and hit release on a specific job, you notice a button down at the bottom here that says copy, scan, fax. I can click into that button, and that'll actually unlock the device for me now. It passes my credentials to the device there, and now I can make a copy job, I can do a scan job, whatever I need to, and all that activity gets tracked back to our database for usage. So it gives me all that workflow functionality. It shows me who's printing, what they're printing, when they're printing, and on the print side, especially what the documents are. On the copy side, it is just going to show you the activity, but it is something, and I will tell you on a competitive side again, typically someone like PaperCut or even let's say for Canon, they've got what's called Uniflow. Those typical systems run about $150 to $200 per device, where we're telling a customer just sell it for $15 a month. It's recurring revenue. You do all the servicing for it. You do all the install and maintenance for it. It's revenue that you can build to offset all the other forces that are out there that are driving down print. So yeah, a lot of information here, guys. I've been talking for a little bit here. Does that sort of make sense? What do you guys think of that? Any thoughts?
Hey, Paul, this is Adam. I just want to say thanks. I thought that this was an awesome demonstration. It's good to see all the functionality that you guys have built into this. I'm just curious, have you guys done any price point analysis to say if you have a customer with a very high print volume and we're approaching maybe 2% coverage rates on average, at which point does it become less profitable to switch to this per user management price model that you guys have in there versus collecting all of the actual print jobs and doing a CPP bill back? Do you guys have any price points on that? So if customers ask us, well, I've got customers who have these super low coverage rates or getting a ton of print volume, we're worried it won't be profitable to switch them over. Do you guys have any kind of counters to that argument?
We haven't really looked at that at this point. I will tell you whether the customers, and I've been talking about per user billing. Obviously, if you've ever looked at any of our legacy marketing talks and conversations, it's all about seat-based billing, right? Seat-based billing is more than just looking at per user. It is saying take those clicks out of the equation and just charge per user. The thing about that concept is those clicks that you're talking about gets added into the cost. So more than just $15 a user, you're talking like 45 to 50 per user. This software, because it is licensed per user and per embedded device, that's where we associate the costs. Typically, this goes on top of a cost per page contract. So regardless of whether there is a yield for those pages or not, it's a moot point. 9 times out of 10, you'll see a customer actually ask for this. It's usually customers who are saying, I need controls. I need the devices locked down. I don't want to see paper left at the side of the device itself. It needs to be end users pick it up. I need to bill back by department. I need to bill back by customer. Whatever they need to do. That's sort of the market space that we're in, which is quite different, and I get it, quite different than what you guys are doing. Now, I will tell you about a couple of things to be, if you're looking at saying, hey, I could talk to my dealer about this, is a great opportunity. First, a couple things. I can make myself available to do these types of demos. I do about, I'd say about 15 to 20 of these demos a week, whether it's to a dealer for, let's say, dealer training, whether it's to the dealer's end user to do a sales type demo, I can do those as well. So we can help you out with those. There's a couple of things that you should know about the market space that we go after. So we tend to go after the K to 12 space, so the school districts. We like to go after law firms, hospitals, government facilities are all sort of table stakes for us. Even military installations. I will tell you, our legacy product has a what's called a certificate of net worthiness. So it can be deployed out to any military installation in the US. We're in the process right now of getting this new product, IUM, certified for that. It's part of an upgrade process. I will tell you, it's probably going to take about a year to do, just because the US federal government takes a long time to get this stuff done. But there is a demand out there for end users to have this type of control, have these audits. In the US especially, hospitals, it's required by HIPAA. Banks, it's required by the FDIC to have a secure print functionality and have an audit trail of what activity end users are doing. Where we do not work, and this is a space that we try and avoid, is the higher education, the pay-for-print type system. And there's a couple reasons why. First off, we don't have what's called a payment gateway. So we can't hook up PayPal, or we can't hook up, a Seaboard system or a Blackboard system, so students can buy print jobs. That's just not what we do. The other one is, in every university, they've got a computer science program. They've got 2,000 to 3,000 students. Those students think they know better than our engineers, and they're going to try and hack this system. And I'll give you a good example of this. If you go into, if you look at PaperCut, just Google PaperCut hacks. There's about 9 or 10 different blogs about how to hack that system. We don't want to get into patch control in those cases, so we just want to stay away from that market, let someone else have it. But if you have a dealer that says, hey, I got a law firm that needs this, I got a school district that needs this, I'm dealing with a hospital, I'm dealing with whatever, this is a great way to add in functionality to them. And I will tell you, I've won more deals by doing this than anything else.
Perfect. Quick question. I'm sorry, this is Adam again, and I'm just kind of go off on a little bit of a different tangent. I saw that you had your print audit branding actually on the printer user interface, and I know that we've talked to a lot of large customers here at PrintFleet, and they feel that that's the next frontier on brand equity. Is there any opportunity for the dealer to actually upload their logo to that user interface on the printer to help spread awareness of who their print provider is, make sure that their brand equity goes up as users approach those printers?
Yeah, absolutely. I know that there's a bit of a roadmap on to be able to allow dealers to white label this system. We used to do this. We had originally we had an agreement with Ricoh where we OEM'd this product. That is something that we've done before, so we can easily do it again. I think it's just a process of how much easier can we make this so a dealer can do it themselves without having some sort of technical expertise.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that explanation.
Hey guys, it's Sean Halliday here. I just wanted to jump in for a second. As I learned more about IUM, I certainly at times asked myself, why would a dealer really want to champion this product when it's going to reduce their clicks? And of course, Paul's already touched on some of the federal requirements and things like that. But a couple things that caught my attention is the twofold. One is competitive interruption. And so if you're trying to steal an account from another dealer, certainly part of the sales pitch would be, we can help you print less. And so if dealer A, who's already in the account, is already living large on the hog on mass printing, yeah, they may not be motivated to come in and reduce it, but the account, the company trying to steal the account may very definitely use that as a competitive entry point. And then secondly, as Paul did allude to, and I thought it deserves some airtime, is that we're starting to see this more and more on RFPs. Customers know this software is out there, and so they're starting to make it a demand that you not only put in devices to help them print, but you put in solutions to help them reduce it, drive costs down. And so it's not all driven from the goodness of a dealer's heart to help save money. It's either on a competitive sphere or a market requirement sphere.
And sorry, this is Adam again. I'm just going to keep jumping in because I'm really excited about this software. So a lot of the direct deals that have been coming to us lately, people are trying to also interrupt the pricing in this space by offering basically a subscription-based model where you'll pay a flat fee per month for up to a certain amount of pages printed. And this solution, I think, is exactly what those customers need to make sure that they're not bleeding out revenue when they offer a model like that to customers. And yeah, I just think that there's a ton of value for how this could change the space on that front. So,
Yeah.
Excellent point, Sean.
And just to add to that, Adam, I will tell you, I've been involved in probably about 20 to 25 RFPs over the past, I'd say 120 days, where the offering that we've gotten in with the dealer is that exact thing. For this flat fee, you get this many pages and there's no overage fees. Well, how do you keep those overage fees in check? You put in a software like ours. And that's the idea, right? It's to help those dealers to make sure that they can go into that competitive space with those. And I'm sure you guys have seen it, right? We know that HP has got their 3-tier metering. We've got Kyocera who's got that. I mean, Xerox used to have that, but that drives down the cost per click. These guys, even if they're looking at it, we see this all the time, right? They're pushing the leasing company to drop the rate, the lease rates. They're pushing the service guys to drop the service rates into an area where it becomes unprofitable. I see this a lot. I mean, $500,000 per click is insane. You can't make any money off of that. Where you can offset that is with this software, because you can add to the revenue. This is an additional service. And, if you look at any of our customer base who actively and proactively uses this system, that's one of the things that they do. It's not just, here's a product that we offer. This is what we do. We do more than just drop the price on clicks, service of the device, and automatic toner fulfillment. We help you get control of what end users are printing. We can break it down per department, not just per device. We can give you a secure print functionality. Whatever you think of, it's all in here. It's a whole 360 package at that point.
And just another question. I'm sorry. When we were going through the rules side, I was just curious. Are there rules to suggest that if your system reviews the print job and it feels that the calculation is that it's at 5% coverage above or below, are there any rules to protect the dealer on that front? Because I think that's another opportunity, is if you implement this software and you put those rules in saying, this is above 5% coverage, which is what the yield of cartridges are measured at. Are there any rules to send an alert off to the management team there or someone else to say, maybe we should stop them from printing at that coverage? Because that both protects the end user by saying we can give you rock bottom pricing per page, while also protecting the dealer to say that you are going to get at least your yield coverage that you were offered when you bought that cartridge. Just curious if that was one of the rules. Maybe I missed that.
So in order for you to do that, we'd have to analyze the coverage of the page. If we're actually looking at the document and looking what's on the document, that goes in the face of 90% of the security compliances out there. So we don't look at that. If you do put in a standard cost per page, because you can enter in cost per page into this system as well, we can do rules based on the actual cost, and you can actually redirect volumes that way. So a lot of the times what we'll see is, a customer's got a whole bunch of printers. They got a USB attached, a single function, a multi-function type environment. We can say to them, look, it's going to cost you $50 if you print this to a USB printer. Print it to one of the network devices, or you should be printing it to the MFP, not the single function printer, whatever you need to do in those cases. But yeah, we're not looking at the yield or the spread of toner per page. It slowed the system down way too much.
I see, gotcha. But you can do it based on the expected cost per page, so you can route it to the right printer to keep the cost as low as possible.
Yeah,
without going in the face of security compliances. Perfect.
Absolutely. Now, I will tell you a little bit, I'll go into a little bit of technical speak on this one, if you guys don't mind. Again, it works on an SQL database. So the system will down when you do an install, will pick up SQL Express 2012 and download it. It can attach to the customer's existing SQL server farm as well if they need to. It is a client and server-based application. So at the moment, I've got this little activity tracker here. This does all my tracking. It also does all my secure print. This client will track anything going to a print server, anywhere where the end user prints directly to a printer, as well as any USB attached printer. So we will track all three pathways of printing. There is a couple things in the roadmap where we're going to be able to have a little bit more flexibility, where the system doesn't necessarily have to be client-based. We will do it as a server-based as well. Right now, you can do that as a pure secure function only. It just doesn't have a reporting metric in it, and that's what we're building into the system, is to be able to report on it if you only deploy it out to a server. Again, it's a web interface. Everything you have, it doesn't necessarily need to be something where you're remoting in. You can access it anywhere. If you guys are interested in seeing the system, if you guys want to run it through and do a practice demo for yourself, I can give you my URL and login that way you guys can play around with it.
Just want to jump in before Adam asks another question. My name is Chris. I just wanted to ask about the technical part of it. So if it is based on SQL Express, SQL Server Express, does it actually have any special requirements when it comes to communication? I mean, does it go over some funky ports that the client has to open, or does it require anything unusual, let's say?
No, port 80 and 443 are the communication ports. It is all standard. If those ports are bound to something else, it will look for alternative ports. You can change those. So it's nothing outside of the ordinary. The only thing I would say is on the and there's a couple things that I did not go over because I just want to give you guys an introduction. There's some advanced things with Active Directory and how we sync up and group users based on credentials. That requires admin privileges. Obviously, if you're attaching this to a server farm, you're going to need those admin type privileges to be able to do this. But I've got a fully armed professional services team that can help out with those installs to make sure that those are going forward quite smoothly.
Okay, so I presume, does it require actually a Windows server to be installed, or can it be installed on a, let's say, a normal machine that has, let's say, a Windows 10 Pro machine that just has the SQL Server and the IIS enabled?
Yeah, so I've actually got this installed on my laptop. It's, you can download SQL Express, put it onto any workstation. In this case, it's on my laptop and it's running off of that. Now, mind you, the one that you're seeing right now, the demo, that is on a virtual, but it is a Windows 10 desktop virtual. It's not a server, but it will work. Like I said, anything. I think if I go back to server credentials and that, it'll work on anything 2008 R2 and above. And then on workstations, right now it is anything. I think Windows 7 and above. For workstations, we are building a client for Mac operating systems as well. That's currently, we're just prepping that one for a beta release at the moment.
And does it work nicely with proxies?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
Good stuff. Well, guys, we're about out of time here. But again, my name is Paul Georgie. You guys should have my email information from the invite that I sent out. If you have any more questions, if you want access to the system, if you want any more, if you need help selling this, by all means, I'm here to help you guys out. Just shoot me an email and we can give you guys a hand.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paul. This is fantastic.
Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate your time today.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.